Super Street, the game. Fully licensed cars? Are they going to feature in the game, and do we even need them? Yes, welcome back to the channel, fellas. Welcome back to the channel, fellas. This is going to be controversial. This is going to be an opinion divider. This is going to be something where you're going to sit on one side of the fence or the other. So let's get straight into it. Now, the topic of fully licensed vehicles in Super Street is something that has been floating around for a little while now. Now, my good friend LP Ripper over on his channel, he put out a video not too long ago whereby he talks about how he thinks there may be fully licensed cars coming into the game. I'm going to actually tackle this from the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to go out on record as saying I do not believe that there will be any fully licensed cars in the game at all. Okay, I've been doing my research. I've been obviously looking at all the evidence. I've been looking at all the screenshots, reading all the interviews, etc. And from what I can see, it doesn't seem to suggest that there is any inkling whatsoever that we are going to be seeing any fully licensed vehicles. Allow me to present to you my evidence. When it comes to launching a new product, marketing is extremely important. The marketing method that you use, the tactics that you adopt, needs to be in line and in accordance with the philosophy and theme of the product upon which you are pushing out to your audience. Thus far, the majority of the pictures, in-game shots that we've actually seen from Super Street have mainly been in relation to customizable parts, coilovers, brake pads, tyres, engine swaps, as you may have seen from the images that I put out in yesterday's video. The question is, why would they go into such depth, such detail? Why would they go so far and so aggressive on pushing this part of the game more so than the physical cars themselves? I mean, when you think about these internal tuning and customization options, these are the types of things that you tend to find out about the game maybe later on down the line. Maybe it might come up in an interview, but to actually go as far as to take high resolution screenshots and put it at the forefront, even more so than cars themselves? Interesting. Now, it's a well-known fact that many games companies, when pushing out racing titles, like to go with a strapline, or what some people may refer to as a slogan. So if you take Need for Speed 2015 as an example, it was the whole "Tonight we ride." That was the slogan that they ran with. That's what they were promoting in relation to the nighttime street feel of the actual game itself. If you take a look at a track simulator like Gran Turismo as an example, for many years, they ran with the slogan, "The real driving simulator." So the question is, what can you do with branded parts? Build a car, perhaps? And for that reason, it should come as no surprise that the slogan for Super Street is "Build your legacy." So there is a huge emphasis on actually building and creating rather than existing cars themselves. Cover art also gives us a huge indication as to where Super Street may be going with this. If you take a look at Forza Horizon 3 as an example, they went with the cover art being the Lamborghini Centenario, if I'm not mistaken. And for Motorsport 7, they decided to go with the new Porsche 911 GT2 RS. Super Street, the game, has decided to do things differently. What they've actually done is they've actually pushed out a car which is non-branded. It looks like it takes some influences from potentially maybe the JDM scene. It looks like it could have a little bit of Mazda in it, who knows? But from what we can see here, clearly this is a non-branded car. That is the car they plastered all over their social networks. To me, it would make absolutely zero sense to put a non-branded and fictional car at the forefront of your marketing if you intend on putting real-life branded cars into the game. Question: what is the most common way of acquiring a new vehicle in a racing game? I'll tell you, there are two ways. The first way is you buy it with in-game currency. The second way is you win the car by participating in and winning an event. Actually, there's a third way, and that's through microtransactions and buying DLC packs, but we won't talk about that. The point is, fundamentally, those are the actual ways upon how you normally and regularly obtain cars in games. In the description on the website of Super Street, it clearly states, in Super Street, you don't buy your ride, you build it. So forget the fact that they're telling you that you don't buy your rides in this game, because as I've mentioned just earlier on, it's possible for you to obtain vehicles without having to buy them in previous racing games. But there's an emphasis again on construction, building, which obviously you would do with the aid of parts. Do you see how all of these points are starting to flow and connect together now? These are not just random points that I'm putting out, they all connect. Gran Turismo Sport, Yes, we're going to have up to 500 cars in our game. Forza Motorsport 7. Yes, there's going to be around 700 cars in our game. Project Cars 2. Oh, we anticipate there being somewhere between 150 to 250 cars in our... These are pretty much quotes that were put out by developers and people behind the actual making of those games. When it comes to car games, when it comes to car racing games, car list numbers, the amount of cars that are going to be in a game is something that a lot of people like to take a lot of note of, and something that developers, more importantly, are very open in sharing with you. They may not tell you exactly what cars are going to be in the game, but they're more than happy to give you an estimated, as near as makes no different, car count number. So far, for Super Street the game, the expected car count number is 0. We've not heard anything. Now, the car count number potentially being 0, I want you to hold that thought for a moment, okay? Hold that thought in your head, because we're going to go back to that in a second. Now, if you're watching this excuse me, you watching this video, I know you're potentially getting annoyed, irritated, frustrated, and potentially hacked off at what I've presented today. Please don't shoot the messenger, okay? I want you to stick with me. I truly believe, honestly, that not having fully licensed vehicles, fully licensed cars for Super Street the game is actually a good thing, specifically for Super Street the game only and no other car game. And allow me to explain my point to you very fine people. In the first video that I uploaded yesterday, I spoke about a gentleman going by the name of Andrew Brown, one of the actual developers on Super Street the game. Now, on the actual website itself, it actually shows an interview whereby they actually got him to speak about some of the creative process and the works upon what's going on right now. And he actually said the following statement when asked about just how deep the system of customization is. He replied, "It's pretty deep. As a player, you start out by choosing a vehicle model, after which you get the possibility to select tons of parts. These vary from rims and body kits to dozens more types of car parts. You even have the chance to swap your whole engine." Apologies for that noise in the background, that was my phone. Now, the part of his statement upon which I am most interested in is the part where he talks about choosing your own vehicle model. How often have we actually heard that type of phrase being used when starting out a game? It's normally you choose your first car, or you pick your starter car, or you buy your first car. Choosing your vehicle model, what exactly does that constitute to? What is a vehicle model? Are we talking about just the chassis? Are we talking about just the base skeletal structure of the car? I mean, obviously he then goes on to talk about customization and other ways in which you can personalize your car, but if you take this concept and then tie it in with the actual slogan of the game, build your own legacy. Well, a legacy has a start point, and that could actually be your start point of your legacy. Starting off with just the raw fundamentals of what a car is, and then actually building it up from scratch. And then as you progress through the game, you start to unlock better, more reputable parts, better quality components, more desirable body kits, etc. Now, for my second theory, what I want to do is start off by producing this screenshot for you guys to look at. Now take a look at this selection of cars on here. I'm willing to bet that unless you have this game, you do not know the names of those cars. I'm willing to bet you think you know the names of those cars, you think you know them, but you don't unless you have this game upon which this screenshot was taken. Now, that car right at the front in the center, front center, that there is a Mazda RX-7, right? I mean, of course it is. Wrong, it's actually the Falcon RZ. There it is, look at it, the yellow car on this second screenshot. Now, the car in the second row at the back, closest to us, I mean, that's obviously a Honda NSX. Clearly it is. Wrong, it's actually the karate chopping Ninja SX. There it is. The red car, bottom left hand corner, kicking your ass. You know what, we can do this all day. Let's go back to that original picture. The car next to what you thought was the NSX. I'm pretty certain you thought was the Toyota Supra. And now you're probably sitting there wondering what on earth it is. Wrong, it's the Wanderer L30. See what I did there with the word wonder and wondering? Yeah, she respect me, yeah. So I think you know where I'm going with this, fellas. I think you know where I'm going with this, chaps. You do not need a license to have the cars that you want in the game. You do not need fully licensed vehicles to enjoy the vehicles that you want. This is an example of a games franchise getting around this. Now, this game, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure a lot of you do because it's a pretty popular game, is a game known as CarX Drifting. It's got millions upon millions of downloads on the mobile phone stores like the Play Stores and the App Store, and it's actually just recently released on PC as well. So if Super Street don't follow my first theory, which is to start off with a base model structure and nothing more, then they could potentially go down this route, or route if you're American, which is just to render exact replicas of the actual cars that you want, which is what they do in fully licensed games anyway. So the question is, what exactly are the beneficial reasons for going down this route, or one of these two routes I should say? Well, first and foremost, it's very simple. You can get more detailed customization and expansive creativity. Very often when these games developers sit down in meetings with car companies, etc., every single car company has got their own agenda and has got their own lists of do's and don'ts when it comes to how much, if at all, you can modify their cars in the game. For example, you're always going to be able to do more customization and more altercations and modifications to say a Nissan or Nissan than you would a Mercedes. It's always been like that in pretty much every game. By using replica duplicate cars, what you're doing is you're completely cutting out the BS, you're cutting out the politics, you're cutting out all the prima donnas and decision making, which pretty much has a heavy effect on the gamer experience, and basically having complete creative control of your own product. Let's take the music industry as an example. There are some artists who prefer to work independently on their own without the backing of a big corporate label. And the reason for that is because as a musician, when you're signed to a label, you are dictated to from the top to the bottom. From the clothes you wear to the songs that you sing, you may even come up with creative ideas yourself that get completely knocked down to pieces because the record label, who own your marketing rights and who are spending loads of money on you, they want you to sing a song made by another artist, for example. You may decide that you want to transition from one genre of music to another, maybe classic to rock. The record label says, no, you can't do that, you've got to do this. If you work independently, you have full creative control and you only answer to yourself. So what exactly does full creative control look like? Well, as I mentioned, there are limitations as to what Ghost, Playground Games and other developers behind big titles such as Forza Horizon, Need for Speed, etc. can actually do. If we go back and take a look at some screenshots of CarX drift racing, look at the different customization options here. We're not just talking about changing body parts. We're not just talking about adding on body kits. We are talking full hood removal, full intercooler exposure, full rear bumper removal, exposed structure. You know those things that you can only do in other games by glitching? These are standard features within this game, and just goes to show you how much more creative, how much more expansive, how much more in-depth and detailed the customization choices become, thus making a better playing experience for you, the gamer. Now what it also does is it allows the game to be a more accurate representation of the magazine itself. So as I mentioned in yesterday's video, for those of you who don't know, and I appreciate millions of you do, Super Street is based off of a magazine, okay? It's actually a magazine franchise which is now turning its attention to making games. The actual magazine franchise itself is heavily focused on modifications, tuning, aftermarket parts, all that sort of craziness that you would expect to be part of a tuner's dream. This allows the game to be more closer to that. How can a game which is focused on a magazine, on customizing and tuning, present you with limited options? That will be a joke. This gets around that problem. Another benefit is that it avoids the potential problem of certain manufacturers turning around and saying, no, you cannot have our car in your game. So we all know the Toyota Supra is not going to be in Need for Speed anytime soon. We also know it's not going to be in Forza. Fair enough, we don't need you, we'll just render our own model. Ensure there's no manufacturer branding on it and just give it a strange name. Thank you, job done, bye. Now the final point is in relation to a point earlier on that we were discussing that I asked you to remember and to hold on to. Now do you remember when we were talking about car counts and I said that the potential car count for this game is actually 0 thus far because nothing has been mentioned? Well, if we look at the first scenario that I actually put out in relation to potentially a base canvas vehicle model that you need to pick at the start of the game, well then that technically means that with all the different combination parts that will be available, technically there can't be a car count because the possibilities could be endless. We could be looking at an infinite number of, well, not infinite because there's obviously going to be a limitation on the amount of parts, but you know what I mean, that we could be looking at a ridiculous amount of different variants, different combinations that can be put together for you to build your own car. What that that basically ends up doing is ensuring that pretty much every single person's car is different. No two cars are the same. When have you ever turned up to a car meet and seen two people with the exact same car, with the exact same specs, with the exact same engine, with the exact same body kit, with the exact same color, with the exact same tires, with the exact same rims, with the exact same exhaust? It doesn't happen. I mean, in other games, obviously you've got a limitation on what you can do with your car. You're customizing your car and you think to yourself, oh yeah, I really like this Rocket Bunny kit that I put on my car. It looks so good. And then you drive out and then you find just about everybody who's got that car is using the same body kit. And all of a sudden, your individuality is gone straight away. By having the game put together in this way, whereby you literally build your car up from the very bottom to the top, you potentially get around that problem and should actually increase the replay value as well. So I guess that starts to bring us towards the end of this video, fellas. Now, there's a couple of things I want you to take away from this, okay? The first thing, and I mean this in the nicest, most kindest way, you cannot have your cake and eat it. You can't sit there and scream and shout that you will not buy the game, or I only want licensed cars, and then complain that the cars are not customizable enough. We've seen this already. We've been there, we've done that, we've seen it in other existing games. If you decide you want a Mercedes or a Porsche or a BMW or whatever in your game, you have to speak to the manufacturer. There is paperwork, there are legalities, and you have to abide by those principles upon which they allow you to work within. If they don't allow you to work within wide parameters, you are limited as a developer as to what you can do to that car. You need to understand that, guys. Secondly, this is not me saying or confirming that there will not be licensed vehicles in Super Street. What this is me basically looking at all the information in front of me, as I always do. As those of you who follow my channel know what I'm like, I'll put together an argument, an opinion if you want to call it that, but with some sort of credibility that provides a topic of discussion for you fine people to get talking about. As always, if it's your first time around here, I wish you a born welcome. If you're enjoying the Super Street coverage that I'm putting out at this present moment in time, be sure to hit the like button, because that will be what dictates whether or not I do another video on this game. I've got a couple ideas in my head, but at the moment it's just stuff that I'm toying with. Be sure to check out the first video that I done talking about how Super Street can actually expose potential rivals within the industry. Link to that should come at the end of this video and should have already popped up in the top right hand corner of the screen. Be sure to subscribe and swing the damn hell out of the notification bell so you know when the next video drops, and I will see you, well, yeah, when the next video drops. Take it easy. Peace.